say police, magistrate and state machinery is under your control. You, he said, talking about the SEC, which is the State Election Commissioner, are responsible for the corpses on the streets of Bengal. And he went on to also say Bengal expects you to do your duty. Now, this is because just yesterday, a 17-year-old boy was killed in a crude bomb explosion in North 24 Parganas. Before that, a TMC worker was also killed in the same district due to a crude bomb explosion, the one that the worker himself was making. Last month in June, a 26-year-old was killed and 3 others were injured in another explosion in Murshidabad. And on June 14, 1 worker each from TMC and ISF were killed, while 5 others suffered gunshot wounds. And I'm not really even going before that. There have been countless other cases of violence and even seizures of explosive material. So 2 days ago, a cache of firearms and ammunition were recovered from North Dinajpur. On June 28, explosive materials, firearms, ammunition were seized from an illegal godown. Before that, bomb-making material was recovered in 24 Parganas, Bhangar. All of this is just between now and June, not even mentioning cases that go back to May. So the big debate and the big question we're asking today is this. Did the state government, did the State Election Commission fail to curb the violence in West Bengal? And if so, what is to be done about this? We'll take that with our guests in just a bit.
My constitutional appointee, you have failed, in my opinion, in your duty. You have failed the people. You are responsible for the corpses that fell on the streets.
A man of such wisdom, a man of such sheer understanding of democratic values and constitution is needed more at this time in the double engine government of Manipur, not in Bengal.
উনি বিজেপি দালালি করে আর বিরোধীদের হয়ে প্রচার করে উনি প্রমাণ করে দিলেন যে উনি রাজনীতিই করছেন। রাজ্যপালের তো কাজ আছে, রাজ্যপালের কাজ প্রেস কনফারেন্স করে রাজনীতির বক্তৃতা দেওয়া নয়।
Let's go across to the guests joining us. Priyanka Tibrewal is joining us from the BJP. Mohammad Tausif Rahman is from the TMC. Shikha Mukherjee is senior journalist, someone who tracks Bengal politics closely, and so is Pratim Ranjan Bose, political analyst. Let me go across to Tausif first up. Tausif, the Supreme Court has been pretty critical of the SEC raising concerns or issues over the central forces. They had to be reminded that no matter where the forces come from, the job is of the SEC to cooperate and ensure that there is violence-free polling, of course, and of course campaigning as well. There have been instances where the High Court has pulled you up in the past because of violence in the state, and now even the governor raising very strong objections. Your response first up.
Well, absolutely. You know, no one is above the law. And whatever happening in Bengal, unfortunately, it's very condemnable and it's heart-wrenching. A 17-year-old boy losing his life, and it's been 15 deaths so far. And it's unfortunate whatsoever is happening. I mean, whether you belong from a TMC cadre family, BJP family, Congress family, ISF family, end of the day, they all belong to some family, and it's very heart-wrenching. And at the same time, ma'am, you have to understand that Panchayat election is a very personal kind of election, and there are some personal issues and personal agenda as well.
Like?
But again, not backing out from anyone, the law and order is under us. We have to contain, sustain, and we have to see everything.
No, I don't understand.
Again,
why are
who
Panchayat
are these
elections
people behind
different
the
from
scene?
other elections?
No, of course. It is not about different from other election, and
Yes.
I'm not giving you any rebuttal about how many people died or they should die because it's a Panchayat election. The problem is who is behind the scene. We want to know that as well. And if I share you the one interview of Dilip Ghoshji, he said, you know, I know everything. The goons are coming from Bangladesh. They're carrying arms and ammunition. They're carrying AK-47. They're carrying bombs. Now, my question is very simple, ma'am. Like if the goons are coming from Bangladesh under BSF, how come BSF is allowing them? Because BSF is under central agencies, under central government. So if the opposition leader, Dilip Ghosh, is confirmed about people coming from Bangladesh, how is this happening? And
Okay,
it's very
I'll
strange.
come to that issue in just a bit. I'll raise your concern with Priyanka Tibrewal. But isn't it obvious that as far as this state machinery is concerned, now you will claim you are better off than the left in the past, but is it not also a matter of shame that even till today in 2023, there is no other state in India that witnesses this kind of violence, so many bombs going off, so many bombs being made? Bengal is turning into a crude bomb factory of its own, right? It happens nowhere else. Tasif, let me finish my question. It happens nowhere else. Now, the TMC has been in power for long enough. It's not like it's just come into power. It's been in power for long enough. Will questions naturally not be asked of you and your political machinery?
It's very easy to say, ma'am, that, Bengal is becoming the hub of bombs and arms and machineries have been taken out, and West Bengal government is not being capable to handle a small panchayat election. But let me tell you, ma'am, we are ruling. This is the third term and people entrust us. People have faith. This is the reason why we are there and why people are voting for us. And at the same time, when I am going for campaigning, personally, I'm telling you, my experience, the people of Bengal have questions. Like, I know these people are from BJP who's staying next to my door, but they behave very well for 1.5 years, 2 years. But when the election comes, why do they turn their eyes and harass the commoners?
The question that will be asked is the state machinery and law and order is in the TMC's control.
State machinery is there. State machinery is there. The governor has to be neutral. I don't know whether the government is neutral.
How can the governor be neutral? How can you be neutral when violence is happening?
So you won't be neutral.
Is there a ploy placed? No, but is this a question of being neutral? Is there any neutrality here? The governor is asking questions of the State Election Commission and the state government, the state machinery, which is currently under the State Election Commission.
Of course you can ask. But if you do a conspiracy against the state government, against the people of Bengal.
Which conspiracy?
BJP is doing a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy against the people of Bengal.
Who is doing this conspiracy against you?
To harass them, to harass the commoners, to get vote. But this is the irony of life.
No, but who's doing this conspiracy against you? Why are you so incapable of handling this conspiracy?
We are not capable. No, it's not about that, ma'am. We are very much capable. Because this is the third term we are running the government. Very silently, peaceful in everything. But if you want to malign the image of the people and the malign image of the Bengal.
Who wants to malign the image of Bengal?
I mean, it's very tough.
Who wants to malign the image of Bengal?
If you want to stand with ISF, if you want to stand with Left Front, and if you
ISF was your ally partner only. Wasn't ISF your ally?
No, not my allies. BJP allies. You should ask BJP.
No, but I don't understand. What is this? One second. What is this victim mentality you're displaying here? That actually this is against you.
No. So if you're not the court. So you cannot charge me because I have to answer you. So I'm answering you.
No,
so
my question to you is what the governor is asking you.
Whatever it is, I have to answer, and I'm giving you a genuine.
So I'm just wanting to understand. You are saying that people are. One second, Tasif. I don't want to speak over you. I'll give you enough time. You said that if you want to malign the image of Bengal, who are you charging at? Who are you accusing of maligning the image of Bengal?
BJP, Amit Shah, Narendra Modi, Suvendu Adhikari, Dilip Ghosh. These are the people who wants to create right. They want to make this like Manipur. But just because Manipur is neglected, because there is no election over there, so the whole focus in Bengal.
I'm not understanding how in any state, if this was happening in Uttar Pradesh, for example, if this is currently, there are ethnic clashes happening in Manipur, for example, nobody blames the opposition for that. You cannot blame opposition for what is a state law and order subject. So I'm not quite understanding. And also, please, nobody has anything against West Bengal. At least let me assure you as far as this show is concerned. But let Priyanka Tibrewal come in. Priyanka, this is a repeat charge against you. Ever since you started growing as an opposition in West Bengal, the TMC believes that you like to humiliate them and embarrass them by adding to the violence culture in West Bengal.
See, if anyone is trying to humiliate or embarrass you, can they do it? If there are no murders which have taken place in West Bengal for this panchayat elections, Can anyone just come on media and say that there have been 16 killings just for one panchayat election in West Bengal? Can my friend say that no, these killings are not there during these panchayat elections? No. He cannot refuse because it is on record. Now, see, they are taking pride for that. For the third time they are in government, people have elected them, but they fail to protect and save the lives of people of Bengal. That is why people are being killed. Now, I'm not saying that who is killed from BJP or who is killed from some other party. There are many who are killed from TMC as well. Although we know
Yes.
the fact that TMC is killing TMC. Now, my pertinent question is that they are the government here. The chief minister is the police minister here. Can she not find out that who are these people who are killing the others? So she is failing. The law and order situation is zero, nil, absolutely. Lawlessness, police administration crumbled. They are the facilitator of any kind of violence which is happening in West Bengal. Now, my friend was also saying about, the weapons and bombs coming from Bangladesh, which he says that Mr. Dilip Ghosh has said. Now, so what are you trying to say, Tauseef, that these are not made in Bangladesh, but these are made in Bengal? Either way, you have to answer. You have to answer that even if these are made in Bangladesh, how are they being used in West Bengal? Why your government is failing to stop them? See, bombs are being hurled in Murshidabad, you have seen. In Canning, you have seen. In Bhangar, you have seen. Everything is on the media.
Priyanka ji, I don't want to interrupt you.
Tauseef, I did not interfere. Wait, let me finish.
Exactly,
let me finish.
Okay, sure.
Let me finish. See, it was all there on the media. So you cannot refuse that, these pictures are there to defame us. How can someone hurl bombs where you have police present on the ground? In front of the police, this is being done. So who is responsible? Who is answerable? Who should be questioned? It is your police people, your administration, your state government, your police minister, who's the chief minister, will be questioned.
Yes, Tauseef, respond
Definitely.
very quickly before I go to others.
No, definitely. Thank you, Priyanka ji. I'm sorry I interrupted you. But again, yes, the question is when I told you that I never said the arms are coming from Bangladesh, the arms are being made in Bengal, but Dilip Ghosh, he is the leader of opposition in West Bengal from BJP. He claimed and he was very much sure that everything is coming from Bangladesh. But how come it is coming from the border when the BSF is with you? The BSF is with the central agencies.
Again,
the
Tauseef,
BSF is under central government. So who is allowing these people?
On the statement I made,
How come
my
it is
statement
happening,
is
ma'am?
so very much clear.
Priyanka
Why
ji,
these weapons and arms are being used in West Bengal? Why?
Priyanka ji, it's not
in
about
any other
using. So
state.
who
See,
are these
TMC
people
has
who
a
are
habit
using?
of going to
Even
Uttar
we
Pradesh,
want to figure it out.
Meghalaya, Manipur, but they
Even
will
we
not
want
talk
to
about
figure it
Bengal.
out. This is the
People of
problem.
Bengal are dying, Tauseef, right? You were talking about your neighbors.
No.
You are talking
Priyanka
about
ji,
your
I
neighbors,
remember when-
but
I
you
remember
don't
two
care for the
movies.
life of people who are dying.
No, but can I just
Priyanka ji,
come in? Can I just come in?
Be
One second.
practical.
Both of you, 1 second. Let me take some comments from Pratim Ranjan and Shikha Mukherjee as well. But I do have a question for the TMC representative. Today you're saying, yes, it is wrong if even one life is lost, right? Tauseef, I got that
Of
correct?
course.
It's unfortunate
Of course.
if 17
Of
lives
course.
have been lost so far, including
course.
young, men. Even a child was hurt. But
Yes, of course.
at the same time, your senior leaders come out and say when the governor raises questions on the state machinery and the SEC, then he's being an agent of the BJP. Now, is that an appropriate response?
Yes, of course, I'm not going to change the statement. The governor is not neutral at all, or he has been neutralized from somewhere. He has to see both the ends from two eyes. He has shut his one eye and he's attacking.
What is the
TMC
other side of this
blatantly.
violence?
So, of course, he is not
He is
there. The
discharging
behest
his
of
constitutional
anything.
duties.
BJP, I mean, कौन कान भर रहा है? ये किसके साथ वो है? समझ में नहीं आ
कान
रहा है
भरने
ना?
वाली बात
So, of
कहाँ से
course-
आई? 1 second. Can I
Of
just come in?
course.
No, 1 second,
Of
1 second.
course,
Let
we
me
are-
deal
we
with
are
this.
not with the governor's
1 second,
statement at
Tauseef,
all.
let me deal with this. Why is this being presented as some sort of campaign against West Bengal? The deaths
It
have
is.
happened. The blasts
It
have
is.
happened. The crude bombs have been found. If this was any other state, they would get even more coverage, I tell you. It's just that this has been normalized in Bengal for so long, it doesn't shock people anymore. But why are you presenting
think-
it as
you think
people
it
are
has not
making
been
up
covered?
facts?
No,
Will the
you think
government
it
not
has not been
question
covered?
if 17
You
people
think
are
it is
killed
not
for an
being covered?
election?
It's we are having 7 debates on Bengal violence rather than Manipur. So of course,
No,
it has
Manipur is
been
also
stated.
being debated.
And you
But
know
why
what?
should we not
See,
talk about
Tauseef,
17 deaths
again
in
you are trying
Bengal?
to cover.
I
Okay,
tell you,
Let me know once
want
again.
to
Let
give
me
you
go
answer.
across to some of our other guests as well. Shikha Mukherjee, in 2018, the last time around, the death toll was 30. In that case, 12 people had died on the day of the election itself. So if I minus that, it was 18 before the polls itself. We are yet to see the polls itself, and I keep my fingers crossed that there will be no violence on the polling day itself. It doesn't look like this culture is being abated. Why do you think that is the case?
Sorry, something happened. I couldn't hear the question.
I'm saying this
Can you
culture of
repeat
violence during any and all kinds of elections in West Bengal is not abating. Why do you think that is the case? The death toll is still pretty high.
Well, yes, the death toll is high. It is unfortunate. And this is exactly how violence is perpetuated. And for 40 years, I've been seeing this happening at the time of the elections. Whenever there are emerging challengers to the ruling party, or there is some degree of volatility about who is going to dominate the political turf, violence escalates. And let me tell you that the 30 number that you're quoting is one of the elections where the death numbers were lower. It has gone up over 100. It has been almost 80 in the past.
Yes.
And therefore, let us be very clear. All political parties indulge in violence in West Bengal. There is no political party that I know of in the 40 years that I have done reporting that does not engage in violence, that does not have squads of people who hunt around and do their bit of violence. People amass bombs, they amass weapons, they have ways of killing people, they intimidate, and every political party does it. There is no political party who is sort of following Gandhiji's line and saying, "I'm for non-violence." Not one political party. Everybody is tarred with the same brush. And therefore, this culture of violence in politics in West Bengal, however I may deplore it, however you may question it, however the governor may question the state election commissioner and find him at fault on a day, on 2 days before an election, this is deplorable. The governor should not have done it. The man has to still conduct the election. He's not going to be replaced. This is, you put a man there, you have given him a certain responsibility, you find that he is failing in his responsibility. Does it mean that you expose him on the day instead of doing it with some degree of protecting his capability of dealing with the situation? I find the governor's action completely baffling.
Okay, let me take that to Pratim Ranjan Bose as well.
You've been discussing this,
yes,
and therefore I'm reacting to it, as it were.
Okay, Pratim Ranjan Bose, on both of these issues, on the issue of the governor's statements today, because
I
certainly
absolutely cannot understand how anybody is going to stop this. The most important part of it is the High Court has intervened. The High Court says central forces.
Yes.
Fair enough, we had central forces in the past. The problem is that the central forces are not here. They haven't yet been deployed fully.
Okay.
The High Court said 830 odd. And where are the 830 odd companies?
But the SEC did, challenge that as well. They went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had to tell them that whether they come from central forces or otherwise, you just have to accept them. But Pratim Ranjan Bose, respond to both of those things. One, the governor's, statements today, you could say from someone in a governor's position were uncharacteristically very strong and very stringent. So your take on what the governor said, should he have done so or not? And secondly, if there is a culture of violence in a state, does the onus not go more on the party and the workers in power? Because the opposition in the state, both Congress, BJP, everybody says that our people are getting killed. So if there is there's a political culture, but there is a party in power, and obviously the machinery is working in a way that where violence is allowed, it will be an unlevel playing field because one party is in power, the other are opposition. I'm just saying this because last Panchayat elections, for example, majority of this, most of the seats were also uncontested. Why does that happen? That happens because there is one section that is enjoying that power greatly or more greatly than others. And maybe others are responding. But respond to both of these things.
Right. So the first thing first, in fact, you have rightly said that the nature of violence, understanding West Bengal is pretty difficult for an outsider. Part of the reason is that you look at violence in terms of numbers, but West Bengal is not that. Let me start with first, we all know what West Bengal is, but before that, let me start with what happened after the results were out in 2018 election. You are very right. In the election, couple of districts, one Birbhum district, altogether there was no opposition. Everyone of TMC was elected before the polls. Okay, so one can understand the level of atrocity, dominance, and fear factor. This cannot happen. This is beyond any mathematics. That even though there is no contestant in any poll, whomsoever of us have participated in some kind of poll somewhere in clubs, in colleges, wherever, we know that this cannot just happen. That everyone in a district will elect someone of one single party unanimous. Second is so the violence is told and untold in West Bengal.
Right.
Here, what we are seeing is the violence in 6 districts. It means in these 6 districts, there was some kind of resistance. In the rest of the districts, it was I must say that most probably and largely, it had been a huge domination. And this domination is not a one-day domination. It happens every day.
So basically, let me just say, what you're saying is that actually when violence is occurring in West Bengal, it is because the opposition is also fighting it back, fighting the domination back.
It has to. What Shikhabi has said, that everyone has to take part in politics, means that it is the whole culture is that if you have to throw the ruler out, then you have to resort to violence.
Right. That's what I was also hinting at. The onus lies greatly on the party that is in power.
Let us put it in unequivocal terms. The ruler is violent.
Ma'am, I'll come to you. Yeah. But on the issue of the governor's statements,
I'm not picking up.
Pratim Ranjan Bose, on the issue of the governor's statements very quickly,
back to the governor?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, for last 10-15 days, whatever discussion has been happening from court to governor, everything is involving the State Election Commission. And it's the way it should organize the election. That had been no one was blaming West Bengal government. State Election Commission is a constitutional body. So it was doing, whether it is doing its purpose or not, the court is very right to intervene. And the governor has said against the State Election Commission, not against the government, not against the state police.
Right.
The question therefore arises, why Trinamool Congress had been so vocal against the governor? In fact, today, I'm not naming because they erased that part. In some TV channel, one ruling party spokesperson said that the court even blamed the court. Now the court is good when they gave you Singurvati. Court is bad when they are.
I get your point.
And,
I think maybe
for what?
The issue is that the governor also raised the issue that why did the State Election Commissioner, for example, not even have time to meet him? Remember, the governor had asked to meet him, and the State Election Commissioner did not turn up. Now that obviously will raise eyebrows of what is really going on.
The Commissioner had taken charge just before the day before announcing the polls. The way the state kept on resisting, the state could have said if nothing, it wouldn't have gone to court. The state could have, because there was a precedence in 2013 polls by Meera Pandey when he sought central forces.
Yeah.
So there was an administrative precedence.
Yeah, there are two issues. Both issues important. One, the State Election Commissioner did not respond to the governor's call. The second is the State Election Commission went to the court opposing central forces. That exposes your hand, some would say. I have 5 minutes left. Tausi, very quickly, then I'll give Priyanka Tibrewal 30 seconds as well.
I'll just finish in 30 seconds. I remember the movie Ghulam-e-Mustafa and Kranti, where how they used to program and stage the riots and violence in the state. Well, the question is why we oppose central force, because you asking again that, it was a counter attack. The misusing of central agency is something which can be seen overall. 2008, 2013, many people died, and BSF was standing like a puppet because they have assigned to do so. Independent candidates are backed by BJP and CPM. BJP leaders like Suvendu Adhikari and Loket Chatterjee forcefully entering BDO office and State Election Commission, and they wanted to create a ruckus over there as well.
Mohammed Tasib, it is a problem when you blame everyone but the government in power and the State Election Commission in charge of conducting elections.
Shivani.
Yes, Priyanka Tibberwal, 30 seconds, please. 30 seconds. Priyanka, I'm out of time. Priyanka, 30 seconds.
The governor is being criticized for
Yeah.
discharging his constitutional duties. 17 people murdered and killed. But Abhishek Banerjee in his conference did not for a single time mention the same. Why? That is the question. Secondly, I disagree with what Shikhaji just said, that all parties are involved in violence. No, BJP is not involved in violence, because if a single person would have been involved, this TMC government would have arrested him immediately. But again, the question remains, why the government is silent on these 17 murders?
What about the
Because
issue
they are
that
in
she
power,
raised
they
on
are
the
the
central
government.
forces? Priyanka, what about the issue on the central forces? Two questions arise. One, if the central forces were so critical, why is violence still happening? Shikha Mukherjee on the ground is saying the central forces are actually not there in the full force, as was mandated.
The deployment of central forces, the police personnel here, the police authorities are not deploying them. So that is the reason that the court had to intervene today. And the court has passed an order where the deployment is not left to the West Bengal police, and it would be done.
Now that's
And
the lie
every
we are
time we see
talking
this,
about.
that the
And
police,
it's
West
good that it's
Bengal,
coming in front of
every
your
time
viewers.
we see that the... Tausi, please. Every time we see that the West Bengal
ji,
police...
No, one by
they
one,
do
please.
not-
One by one. I'm running out of time. Priyanka, please
They do not
finish.
utilize
Why?
the central forces.
You want your people,
They do not
you
utilize
want,
the central
if you're
forces.
scared,
They just
you want your
give them
people
a
to die.
peaceful march
So
on
if
the
you don't
streets.
want your
They
people
do
to
not
die,
allow them to stand
this is
outside
what
the
you're
police
saying.
station.
No,
That
if
is
the
why
central
the
forces
TMC
have
is
been
saying,
deployed
no.
and they have been mandated by the
That is
Supreme
why
Court, then the
you
question
don't
will
want
also
to
arise,
central
what
force.
is the difference that is making on ground? But I've run out of time. I do thank all of you for joining us. Remember, we've not seen the polling happen just yet, and we keep our fingers crossed that it will be peaceful, by and large, as far as West Bengal standards are concerned. But let's also take a quick look at these reports from some of the most violence-hit areas in Bengal. My colleagues Pallavi Ghosh and Kamalika Sengupta in Murshidabad and East Medinipur.
Well, despite the central forces being deployed in all these areas, this is the Domkal district in Murshidabad, which is one of the worst affected areas. In fact, right where I'm standing now is Raninagar, and this is also an area where you are seeing the Congress perhaps even most aggressive, and it's a clash between the TMC as well as the Congress party. And as the Congress gets more and more aggressive and hits back, the Trinamool Congressy equal does so. This is also one of those areas where crude bombs have been found being made very easily, and the jury is still out really that who are the ones who are, kind of involved in making them. But it's clearly a flourishing industry right over here. And as I said, this is the Murshidabad belt. And if you remember, the State Congress chief, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, comes in from this area, and he's considered to be a strong man. And of late, the Congress has got very emboldened. And despite talk of opposition unity and a kind of an alliance, over here he's made it very clear that the Trinamool Congress is very much the opponent. And it's these people who really have to face the brunt of it. তো ভোট দিতে যাবেন তাও তো আপনাকে বলেছে ভোট না দিতে ভয়ে দিয়ে পাইছে
বুঝছো তোদের বাচ্চা কি ভোট দিতে যাবি আইলে থাকবো পাহি দুয়ারি আইল কাটবো আইল তুই শালা যাবি শালা সবাই ভোট দিতে ভোটের ভয় হবো
So what she's telling me is that these people who came here and attacked the house told her that we are going to try and ensure that you cannot even cross this area and go and cast a vote. But she's saying that she's definitely going to go and vote. All of these deployment of the central forces, which you can see just right behind me over here, there is a fear factor which has definitely dipped. But it's also a reflection on the, I would say, the harsh reality that even at the Panchayat elections, the kind of intimidation tactics are extremely strong.
In the month of May, in Khadikul in Agra in East Medinipur, a huge blast took place. This is the site where the blast took place and 11 people got dead.
About a kilometre from the blast site is a tea shop. Elections add a special flavour to the humble cup of chai. With political flags hung up, this tea shop is the hub of election chatter.
इसका इफेक्ट इस बार चुनाव में, पंचायत चुनाव में पड़ेगा?
जरूर पड़ेगा। मतलब इधर तो तीनों मूल का कोई भी अभी तो झंडा धरने के लिए भी तैयार नहीं है।
Shamashri Maiti also lost her life in the blast. Her son was given a job by the government, but her family hasn't gotten any closure. The main accused in the Agra blast was Bhanu Bagh, the owner of the illegal firecracker unit. Bagh had sustained 80% burn injuries in the explosion, but fled to Orissa after the blast. He eventually succumbed to his injuries in a hospital in Cuttack. The two-storied bungalow is where he lived. With memories of the blast still fresh on the minds of the villagers of Khadikul, will it be a deciding factor when it comes to the voting in the Panchayat polls?
Moving on, even as fresh Khalistan threat posters targeting Indian diplomats have come up across Canada, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has responded to allegations from India of taking a soft stance on Khalistani elements within the country. Trudeau stated that the allegations were wrong and that Canada has always taken threats of violence seriously. His comments come a week after External Affairs Minister Jaishankar had said that K-extremist elements were used by Canadian authorities for vote bank politics. India has responded sharply to Trudeau's comments, stressing that freedom of speech could not be misused to instigate violence or terrorist activity. First, take a look at what exactly the Canadian Prime Minister has said on the issue of the K threat emanating against India from his land. He said India is wrong when it suggests that Canada has not done enough, and added that we have always taken extremely seriously violence and threats of violence. We have always taken serious action against terrorism and we always will. He went on to say we have an extremely diverse country and freedom of expression is something that we have, but we will always make sure that we are pushing back against violence and extremism in all its forms. Now, the reason not many are taking Trudeau's words seriously is because of the history of emboldening of K-hate in Canada speaks for itself. Take a look at some of the recent cases. This month, posters threatening Indian diplomats have been released online. The police has increased their security as a response. Last month in Brampton, Indira Gandhi's assassination was portrayed on a tableau and no action has been taken so far. In March in Surrey, High Commissioner's event was targeted. Suspects are still being looked for. In February this year, Ram Temple was defaced with anti-India graffiti. The investigation is still going on. Gauri Shankar Temple was defaced before that with pro-K graffiti. The investigation is still pending or results are pending. Gandhi statue was vandalized earlier, sprayed with pro-K graffiti. No real movement in the case. In March 2022 in Surrey, for example, K sympathizers hurled abuses at a journalist of Indian descent and cops remained mute spectators. So the question that arises after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's statement is he being true to his words?
It's taken extremely seriously, violence and threats of violence.
We are at a loss to understand, other than the requirements of vote bank politics, why anybody would do this.
They are wrong. We've always taken serious action against terrorism, and we always will.
It is a matter of concern that freedom of expression and speech is once again being misused by anti-India elements.
Let's go across to the guests who are joining us. Sushant Sareen is Senior Fellow of ORF, International Affairs Expert. Also, Ramneet Singh Maan is an activist joining us. Ramneet, what did you make of Justin Trudeau's statements? He's saying we will not allow freedom of speech to be misused. And we have always acted against acts of violence or even threats of violence. Do you think he's being true to his words?
No, his words are hollow and they lack any backing or concrete measures on ground, as expected by any responsible sovereign state which respects democratic values and which respects the sovereignty of other nations, number one. Number two, Well, when they say that they will not tolerate violence, well, depiction of violence was on display in Canada at several occasions, whether it was Tiranga rally, or whether it was a depiction of late Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, in a manner which portrays or which glorifies murder.
Yes.
So I don't see, his values or his words going any forward from his political compulsions back in Canada. So I don't see him meaning any of it.
Sushant?
At least he should be able to bring anything on ground, literally. No.
Sushant, how should we see this? The fact that Justin Trudeau has at least been forced to respond, and obviously as a Prime Minister of Canada, he was not expected to say much else. He would have defended his own record and his government's record. But the fact that he's been forced to respond, do you feel that that in itself is some sort of progress, that questions are being asked?
No, I don't think so. I think the right-minded people have already asked these questions and are continuously asked these questions. The problem is with politicians like Justin Trudeau. He is actually, in a sense, playing advocate for terrorism by sidestepping the whole thing. He's being disingenuous when he says that we've always stood up against violence, because violent speech and hate speech is also violence. Because if you are instigating people to take to arms, you are openly threatening people with murder. You are threatening not just people with murder, you are threatening diplomats of a foreign country with murder. Then that's a very serious problem. And if for reasons of political expediency, and even that is kind of surprising, because it's not as though all the Sikhs in Canada are Khalistanis. Number one, the Sikh community itself is a fraction of the total Indian community.
Yes.
Out of that, a fringe element is the Khalistani element. And yet, people like Trudeau, people like the other clowns in his cabinet have continued to stand, in a sense, with those fellows.
So
or
that was
with their alliance partner, that fellow Jagmeet Singh, whatever that clown's name is, that guy, he's a out and out Khalistani. So, and yet Mr. Trudeau thinks that, this is freedom of speech. Then I think he needs to get his head examined on what exactly is freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Because he never allowed this freedom of speech and expression to the Canadian truckers or any other people who were demonstrating peacefully. Out there, he cracks down. He brings the wrath of the government on them. But on this, he is like a pussycat on a wet day, hiding in a corner. And
yeah, nobody's bank accounts are being sealed, for example, as was done for the freedom movement. But can I just ask you, you touched on a very good point. One, obviously not all Sikhs in Canada are pro-Khalistan. On top of that, the population of the Sikh community, not just in the larger Indian diaspora, but in the overall Canadian population is a very small portion. It is a few percentage points. Why is it that it's carrying so much weight, Sushant? Now that you've touched on this point, I want to understand from you that why, as you say, a tiny minority is being able to affect Canadian politics so much. Is it because of money, power, or otherwise?
Shivani, let me turn this question around. How many Italians in New York were actually part of the mafia? But the normal guy on the street is not a criminal. He is not a goon. He is not a thug like these Khalistanis are, right? So what does the normal guy on the street do when he does not even enjoy the state's protection? And the state in Canada does not protect him. Earlier in your report, you were saying about the abuse hurled on an Indian journalist, Indian origin journalist. It wasn't abuse. The guy was assaulted. And the Canadian cops did nothing about it.
Yes.
Almost as though, they were like those New York cops in The Godfather who were hand in glove with the mafia. That is what Canadian police is all about. And that is what Canadian politicians, like Godfather said that I have these guys in my pocket. That is what these fellows have.
But why? The question I'm asking, Sushant, is why?
They are criminals.
Why do they wield so much power?
They are criminals and the other people are not. That's as simple a logic as I can give.
Ramnik Man, I read out all of these instances, and I'm not even going back many decades or many years. Just in the last 12 months or so, I read out these instances of provocations against India, some of them bordering on threats of violence, depiction of violence, as you said, and even obviously now threatening violence against Indian diplomats. In all of those cases, one pattern emerges, which is that these cases go nowhere. then obviously naturally the question will be asked to Justin Trudeau of how have you stood by the safety of your citizens and just generally of Indian diplomats and of Indian sovereignty and integrity. As a global power, or as a country that has business with India, does business with India, you have to respond a little bit stronger.
So, Shivani, see, I, have an opinion on this, that is, that the Western powers want to deny India its rightful position on the global platform, number one. Number two, they would also want to keep India in a jelly state, not as a liquid state, which would, melt down and, have civil rights or something, or become a solid state like, per se, China or Russia. So it's in the interest of the Western countries to keep India in a jelly state. That is number one. So I also feel, it's a matter of policy for these Western countries. I would not see Canada in isolation, but I'll also look at England and US for that matter. But now when these Khalistani elements or these separatist elements from all across the world, they are given shelter in the Western countries in the name of freedom of speech or, right to opinion or whatever, they would want to call it, number one. Number two, now, when they bring out a march called a Khalistan Freedom March, they would now need to wake up and smell their coffee that this Khalistan is actually going to become a sovereign nation, if at all, on their own land, not in India. Because like Sushant Bhai rightly said, Sikhs in general, especially in India, are not favoring Khalistan or a separate Khalistani nation being carved out of India the way they are depicting in the maps or the representation that they give. So if Trudeau or Biden, or for that matter, the British government are prepared to give away land for Khalistan or, a separate sovereign nation from within their own country, they're most welcome to encourage them. But when it comes to encouraging these people at the cost of India, or to encourage them to try and bring harm to our diplomats in their nation, so though host nations have to finally take a call as to what are they supposed to do or what strong, stern, visible measures they have to take when it comes to dealing with these Khalistani elements, especially in light of the fact that international diplomacy depends on reciprocity. So if diplomats are going to be treated in host nations like Canada, the UK and the US, we might as well give them back the same treatment.
Okay, that brings me to the next part of my discussion. Ramnik, why don't you start first before I go to Sushant? Do you believe the Indian government has done enough in recent months, in the last couple of years, let's say, especially in the last few months when this, this propaganda machinery has escalated itself, to make itself heard and also pressurize all of these governments where the Khalistani movement is present? Do you think we've done enough? Because the External Affairs Minister himself has talked about vote bank politics, I think, which would be a first.
Okay, so two things. Number one, back in home, things were looking very hopeless about 4 months back before Amritpal Singh was apprehended and tucked away in a jail in Assam. So at the home front, I think they dealt fairly well with the situation at home. Now, as far as the situation away is concerned, the statements coming from the EAM, External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, very strong in nature. I am sure that they will be backed by solid action on ground. But yes, I personally feel there is a lot more which can be done, which needs to be done, and which must be done to rein in and to bring these key elements under a check.
Sushant Sareen, I had G. Parthasarathy with me on a show when we were discussing the recent attack in San Francisco. And he believed, particularly in the case of Canada, even though the attack happened in USA, the community in India feels, especially the diplomatic community and security community, that actually USA is better at this than what Canada has been. The two countries cannot be equated. And in particular in the case of Canada, he felt, for example, which is a sentiment I see being echoed by many, that India must now take very strict diplomatic actions, maybe even degrading the relationship between India and Canada. Sushant Sareen, please.
Yeah, I agree with the bit about the Americans being far more clear-headed on this, although San Francisco itself is a problem because of the kind of government that exists in that city. They can't even take care of the basic law and order out there. So forget about San Francisco. But on Canada, Shivani, it's unfortunate because Canada, like Australia, UK and the US, is a friendly country. We have a lot going on with them.
Yes.
And yet, if the politicians out there behave the way they are doing, then we have a serious problem. Now, at the diplomatic level, I think what we have done so far is basically, press the buttons of normal diplomatic activity in terms of issuing démarches and in terms of summoning their high commissioner, telling them, trying to convince them. But obviously, it is water off a duck's back. These guys are not doing anything about it. So I think you need to escalate it a bit. So, for example, on these posters which came out, these guys have plastered the numbers and the pictures and the numbers and other details of Indian diplomats. Let's do it for the Canadians out here.
No, but we can't do it. No, Sushant.
Because this really creates a lot of problems.
No, but Sushant, we can't be seen as doing it, right? A sovereign country like India cannot be seen as doing it.
No, why would the government of India do it? Some news channel can do it. Somebody like me or Ramneek Maan can do it. There are enough people on Twitter who can do it. Nameless, faceless people. The point I'm trying to make is that when this kind of a thing happened in Pakistan against the Americans, they literally had to pull out their diplomats and they took a very dim view of what had happened. Now this is being done to Indian diplomats, and yet these shameless Canadians are letting it pass, and he calls it freedom of speech. He should be ashamed of himself. So I think some kind of pushback is required. Okay. And what I'm suggesting is just the very basic kind of stuff, but I think there are many things that can be done to harass them the way they are their citizens. These are not my citizens who are living in Canada. These are Canadian citizens who are harassing my people. And I'm not going to stand for it. It's as simple as that.
All right. I'll leave it at that. I do thank both of our guests for joining us. Certainly, the Indian government has made its mind very clear. And in recent times, some of the pressure has been seen to be working as well. We'll wait and see what happens on Canada's front. Time for a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you more of how Meta has launched Instagram threads, directly challenging Twitter. Everything you need to know on the other side.
We saw them under pressure make a difference, and we saw what a disastrous experiment that was. So in this case, they are playing it safe, and he makes it very, very clear we are not going to be announcing a CM candidate. And the reason is it would have miffed both the camps, either Ashok Gehlot and, of course, on the other hand, Sachin Pilot. The second important is, if you remember, most of the yatras and dharnas by Sachin Pilot was also actually on the paper leak scam case. Now, in this case also, there are two reach outs which clearly have been made to Sachin Pilot, that there is going to be a new legislation which we are going to bring across in the next session, assembly session of Rajasthan, which clearly is going to be after elections. So thereby the hint also goes that the Congress is going to come back to power. In that, the hint, it's clear-cut reach out to Sachin Pilot's demand that on the paper leak case, nothing has been done by the Gehlot government to take action against Vasundhara Raje Scindia.
Right. I'm also joined by Sharon Elizabeth on the broadcast. Thank you, Sharon. When it comes to the tussle between the two big faces of Rajasthan, when it comes to the Congress party, Ashok Gehlot as well as Sachin Pilot, K.C. Venugopal just said that everyone should follow party discipline. If someone steps out of line, action will be taken. But if we look at what Sachin Pilot's been doing for all these weeks, he has not followed the party line. At the same time, he's openly hit out at Ashok Gehlot. That resolution seems to be far from over, even in the run-up to the Rajasthan elections.
Yes, and but based on how the Congress party won the Karnataka election, because if you remember initially, of course, there was fight between D.K. Shivkumar and Siddaramaiah, and remember a similar sort of a meeting was done in the national capital here, where Rahul Gandhi, where Mallikarjun Kharge intervened and said that until and unless we are not united, we will not be able to defeat the BJP in Karnataka. And because of the win that happened with the united front that has in fact been put up by D.K. Shivkumar and Siddaramaiah till the end of the elections, perhaps that is why they won, is what the Congress party believes, and a similar strategy needs to be followed not just in Rajasthan but also in Chhattisgarh. That is probably why last week we have seen how the infighting, though it is not that out in open when it comes to Bhupesh Baghel and T.S. Singh Dio, but there have in fact been war of words as far as the CM and the Deputy Chief Minister post is concerned, and to put all these gossips and fight at rest, the High Command decided to make T.S. Singh Dio the Deputy Chief Minister. But when it comes to Rajasthan, it has always been very complicated for the Congress party. But here also they want to make sure that with the campaign mode, with party going into the campaign mode, with candidates going to be selected by the first week of September, they want to ensure that there are no infighting and wants to make sure that none of these leaders go out and make statements, because this has happened time and again in Rajasthan, where we have seen Ashok Gehlot coming out and attacking Sachin Pilot going and sitting on a dharna against Ashok Gehlot government, his own government. So clearly that needs to first of all stop, and accordingly a decision to resolve that what is going to be the next responsibility that will be given to Sachin Pilot is something that is, of course, we are being told by our sources that probably by today evening or tomorrow, a decision on that will also be taken. But as far as this meeting was concerned, this was solely on the strategy of the elections for the upcoming Rajasthan elections. That was done. But as far as the responsibility for Sachin Pilot is concerned, there could be a separate meeting, there could be a separate release or a statement where it will be made clear that what is the responsibility that is going to be given to Sachin Pilot and whether he will be sufficed with that, whether he will be okay with that. Apart from that, he has also made 3 demands. One is, of course, investigation on the former...
Right. Thank you, Sharon, for getting us the latest from the Congress camp. Now, the West Bengal Panchayat polls are on July 8th, and the political temperature remains high in the state. Today is the last day of campaigning. Security has been tightened in the state, considering that violence that has killed more than 12 people ahead of the polls continues unabated. On Wednesday, fresh violence was reported in the Nadia district between CPM and TMC workers. Several security personnel were injured during the clashes. Right, so that is the latest coming in from the state of West Bengal, ladies and gentlemen. What we are seeing over there is the violence continuing unabated in the state of West Bengal right ahead of the Panchayat elections. Now we're getting a piece of breaking news. And West Bengal Governor Ananda Bose takes aim at Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. He blames the State Election Commission for the killings that have taken place in the run-up to the Panchayat elections. Let's listen in.
Bangore, Basandi, Kuch Bihar, Murshidabad, Purulia. Who is responsible for this? Who is responsible for this? Who is the killer? Will the State Election Commissioner SEC please raise his hand? Will the SEC please raise his hand? You should know who are the killers. You are the custodian of the lives of people during election. My constitutional appointee, you have failed, in my opinion, in your duty. You have failed the people. You are responsible for the corpses that fell on the streets.
And with that reaction, the TMC has now hit out at the governor, claiming he used the label of governor to go around filling the shoes of a BJP agent. That is the pitch coming in from TMC leader Kunal Ghosh. He says, why did he need to do a press conference calling out the TMC?
Revolution.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. Twitter rival is here. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has launched a text-based conversation app called Threads, linked to Instagram. Within the first 4 hours, Zuckerberg claimed that over 5 million people had signed up for the app. Now, Zuckerberg has positioned this app as a friendly competitor to Twitter, which Elon Musk acquired in October. With a character limit of 500, Threads offers numerous features similar to Twitter. The app's main feed shows posts from accounts you follow, along with accounts recommended by Instagram's algorithm. You can repost something with your own commentary, and replies are featured prominently in the main feed. Experts suggest that Threads may appeal to dissatisfied Twitter users due to recent platform modifications. Recently, Musk announced that Twitter users will be limited to viewing a specific number of tweets per day, aiming to address concerns regarding, quote, system manipulation on the platform. There is a lot of buzz also on the cage fight between the two billionaires. On June 21, Tesla founder Elon Musk tweeted about a cage fight with Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. That offer was taken up instantly. The Meta CEO shot back by posting a screenshot of Musk's tweet and caption, "Send me the location." Despite the buzz, there is no confirmation though before you get your hopes up that the fight will actually take place. But in the battle of social media, can Zuckerberg's threats trump Elon Musk's Twitter? Here's a comparison between the two social media giants. Now, Threads has a character limit of 500, while Twitter, if you don't have a blue tick that you have to pay for now, is 280-word character limit. There is no limit in reading posts on Threads as we speak, while Twitter has just imposed a limit of 600 posts. Remember, this is again for those who have not bought a blue tick. Threads brings an option of direct messaging, but that is only via Instagram. In fact, the whole app is linked to Instagram. While on Twitter, if the DM is open, you have the option of sending a direct private message to other users. You can post a 5 minutes long video on Threads, while there's only a 140 seconds video upload limit for those who don't have blue tick on Twitter. No advertisements as of now on Threads, while there are ads that appear on Twitter timelines. No support for hashtags yet on Threads, while the hashtags experience is integral to using Twitter. Threads collects a lot of data is what the fear amongst users is, while Twitter collects limited or less data. Here's a breakdown of the time taken by various platforms to reach 1 million users. Now remember, Netflix achieved this milestone in 3.5 years. Twitter took 2 years. Facebook accomplished it in 10 months. Spotify reached 1 million users in 5 months. Instagram achieved this feat in 2.5 months. ChatGPT accomplished that in just 5 days. And now Threads, the newly launched app, remarkably has reached that 1 million users mark within a mere 7 hours. Another reason it could be a headache for Elon Musk. Here's more.
Meta Platforms is launching a rival to Twitter, dubbed Threads. The new product is a text-based microblogging app connected to Meta's Instagram. Users will be able to follow the same accounts as they do on the photo-sharing app and keep the same username. That's according to its listing on Apple's App Store. Social media analyst Drew Benvey says the new product looks like a serious challenger.
I think Threads is going to pose a huge threat to Twitter because it's coming from the Meta and Instagram family of apps. Instagram has 2 billion users compared to around 250 million of Twitter, so it's about 10 times bigger already. So if only 1 in 10 Instagram users tries using Threads, it's overtaken Twitter in the blink of an eye.
Meta did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment on whether it would also launch on the Google Play Store. The debut comes after Twitter announced a slew of restrictions on its app. Musk said users would have a limited number of posts they could read per day to address extreme levels of data scraping and system manipulation. Benvey says it's really further evidence of the troubles that have plagued the network under its new owner.
Since Elon Musk took over, the system itself isn't working as well as it should. Just over the weekend, we saw Twitter go down and then limits put in place for users so that it doesn't break the servers again.
Users will also need to be verified in order to use TweetDeck, a popular app for viewing and managing Twitter accounts. The announcement came in a tweet detailing an improved version of TweetDeck with new features. Musk's latest moves have sparked a fierce backlash from Twitter users. Ad experts say they would also undermine new CEO Linda Yaccarino, who started in the role last month.
Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. CNN News 18 and The Right Stand have been at the forefront, relentlessly exposing illegal migrants' threat that our nation is facing from across the border, especially from the porous borders with Bangladesh and Nepal. And the first signs of this is the growing population in the states bordering these nations.